of it is cerebral, it goes on in your head. It's very difficult to actually put it down on paper. It's easy for me to tell what an artist does, it's easy for me to say what a writer does. The real differences between being a writer artist and being a pencil, which I've been, or being a writer, which I've also been, is that you're working on your own. So the compromises that you have to make with other people, you don't have to make. That's the main difference. Basically, when you get two individuals, writer and artist, you've got two of those. The more mature, the more professional you are, the more used you are working together. But if you get someone who's quite new and full of themselves, you've got problems. If you get someone who's just set in ways, you've got problems. So it's really down to personality whether you click or not. That's really the only main difference between being a writer and artist, because when you are a writer and artist, you basically just do what you want. If you think the drawing is more important, then you do the drawing. If you think the writing is more important, you make more space for the writing. So really, in essence, other than that, it's the same as you would imagine for being a pencil or writer. Now, if anyone has any questions, just sort of jump into something specific, because I don't know how familiar everyone is with stuff that I've done in the past, but I can give a sort of quite history of what I've done to sort of see the evolution of how things started and what I've gone through. Would that be helpful? Okay, well, I started working in British comics from Marvel UK. I first started in Captain Britain, which was a 5-page story. In Britain, the comics were monthly, but they were anthology title. Most of the regular comics in Britain are weekly, but the superhero comics would come out monthly and were reprint titles, just on pages. I initially went to Marvel thinking of myself as a writer, but they thought that I was basically unable to do the job, but I could draw and give me work as a penciler. As time went on, I got the opportunities. Eventually, my first American work was Batman Outsiders, which I worked with Mike Barr, who was a really good coach. Then I went on to work on Excalibur with Chris Claremont, who I regard as being the best writer I've ever worked with. And that's simply because he can write a plot, and when he hands it to you, there's no, you can let it go. He's not so precious about any idea. If you say to him, this doesn't work or that doesn't work, he's fine. The thing that saps your strength most when you're working with a writer, if you are the pencil or with pencil if you're a writer, is when you have different opposing ideas and you have to argue. That just saps both your strength and you don't get anywhere. Okay, so after doing Excalibur, I had a shot at writing myself. Now the reason this was is because I just got fed up with the politics of having to wait for plots and things. And again, when you're a writer artist, you generate the plot yourself. Okay, so I suppose getting down to specifics, unless someone's got a question about the actual dynamic of doing a story myself, is that obviously every story is beginning, middle and end. The next consideration you have, which is the same for everyone, is how many issues does it take? Then after that, how many pages in each issue will be devoted to it, how many panels on each page. Depending on the mood of the story that you want to do, what the pace of the story actually is. If you want to do a dark, moody story, obviously it affects the artwork. You have shadows and mysterious light and that sort of thing, and the text will maybe be slightly more gothic. Taking an extreme example, with a superhero story, you tell the story much faster and more short things. So you have to make that sort of consideration. But as I said again, they're all exactly the same whether you're working on your own or together. When you are working on your own, the one sort of crucial difference is, as I already said, you don't have to worry about which is more important, which is more overpowering the scene. So when I plot a story out, I'll decide, is this talking heads to put it through the scene, or is it an action scene? If it's an action scene, I can draw it up as the action, put the dialogue on later. If it's a talking head scene, I can do the dialogue, work out exactly what everyone's saying, and precisely, full stop, commas, point placements. And when that's done, then draw the characters with the facial expressions, with the mouth movements, so the person who's speaking has the mouth open, someone who's listening has the mouth shut. When you do a comic with someone else, you don't have that luxury. If you work in the Marvel way, which is plot, art, script, you basically get a plot that says, character A goes there, does this, a rough idea of what you say, and then goes on. So you'll often see things like the artist drawing the back of the head because he doesn't know what the facial expression is meant to do. And it's not the artist being lazy, it's really just, he has no chance. If he draws a face, it's invariably going to be wrong. I know that Brian Bolland once got really upset when talking about a cover that he'd done on Animal Man, where he had a woman screaming, going, "Aye," and they had an "oh" sound effect going out of his mouth, because Brian really worries about the actual lip formation. Now, when you are the writer artist, you can do that. You can worry about precisely punctuating the dialogue. And what it allows you to do is to modify the dialogue so that you can have a visual punctuation to the dialogue, which a writer can ask for and an artist can't usually put in. So I'd say they're the sort of subtle things if you kind of, is there anyone who can ask a question here, because I'm sort of like getting to the point where I can either get very technical or just get very tongue-tied.
I was wondering, you run into ego problems working with another writer, don't you sort of run into the same things? You're trying to do both, and you have an idea, and as a writer, and it doesn't work when you try to draw it, and you find yourself...
Well, no, really, the question is whether there's some sort of like sort of schizophrenic problem between the artist and the writing aspect. No, what happens is you have an idea, and the thing is that the art and the dialogue are the basic raw materials of explaining the idea and putting it out. The actual, this is one of the things that I think is wrong with comics at the moment, is the writing and the artwork have become an end in themselves. You have artwork which is illustrated. It doesn't carry the story, it's just a great image. You have dialogue which is very poetic and very clever, very snappy, but it pulls you out of the story because rather than being a flow, there's a clever line dropped in, which you can see that's a really clever line. It might not be appropriate. So as a writer, artist, what you can do is you can choose which one is best for the story. You can always write a clever line down and use that again, because if you're working as a professional, the one thing you can guarantee is you're always going to use everything 10 times, because there just isn't that many great things to do. So if you have a great idea, I've actually just done this recently with a plot that I've been working on, is that the writer came up with a brilliant idea for one panel of a £7 page, and I said to him, it's completely wasted there, because it should be a splash page. It was such a good idea. I was just completely thrown away in the context of the story, so we've actually saved it. And this is the sort of thing that I do all the time to my art.
You find that as a writer artist, you're going to come down with kind of redundancy as sort of the guy saying, looking at falling through a hole and saying something like, well, that was falling through a hole. Sometimes they actually have the player explaining exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think that is a problem about where the writer has to cover for the artist. Sometimes it's inevitable, sometimes I think it's just that the writer doesn't trust the artist, sometimes it's that the editor doesn't trust the reader to be able to understand what's going on. One of the things that I try for personally is simplicity in artwork, simplicity in the dialogue, try to keep it as basic as possible. Actually, while I was working on the nail, I made a conscious decision before I even started that I wouldn't use captions for anything except addresses so that you could say where the action was going on, and I wouldn't use thought balloons. Now this is because my own children won't read comics, because when you look at comics you just find them impenetrable. They look at caption boxes, thought balloons, speech bubbles, telepathic balloons, different lettering styles, and it just gets totally confusing for them. So I want to do a comic which was just right back down to basics. People speaking and visual action, that's all there is. But that's because my taste in comics is very purist.
When you're doing a plot for a story, do you write it up or do you draw it? Or do you do both at the same time?
Well, what I initially do is I'll come up with a story idea, and then as I say, you have to break it down into, is this going to be feasible in a 22-page issue, or will it need more pages? Whatever. If you're working on a regular series, you've obviously got to break it down into issues. If it's a graphic novel, you still have to break it down into how many parts it's going to be. Then you break it down onto pages, you break it down onto panels. Just through experience, you have a rough idea of what you're going to get in each panel. Now there is one thing that I can show you, which I think is really basic storytelling, which I think is gone out of fashion in comics now. And this is the left-hand, right-hand layout now. the amount of times, because of the primary panels that you have in comics nowadays, you'll often get a primary panel in an area like this, and then you have a load of storytelling squashed up on top, and maybe some dialogue, and you've got the big dramatic image here. Now, to me, when you open that, the first thing you look at is this, because it's the biggest thing on the page. So what I do, and it's not something that I invented, it's just something that comics always did, is that you have the build-up on the bottom of the right-hand page, and you have the revelation there, so that when you turn over, you get the effect. And what that does is it pulls the reader through the comic, because when you get down to the bottom of the page, you get what they call a turnover effect, where you've got to turn over to see what happens next. There's no pause there. Then once you see the shock image, then you go on to read the smaller panels. Now to me that is like comfortable, simple, sensible storytelling. Once you start this sort of thing, it just gets confusing. I see that as being a really basic tenet of good storytelling. I don't think it's restrictive. I think it's just making sure that the reader sees what you want them to see first. Many people who write in comics nowadays, I think, are either frustrated novelists or frustrated screenwriters. And I don't really regard myself as a good writer. I just think that the standard of writing is so bad that I can wing it.
Are you talking about talking dead scenes?
Yeah.
And one of the things I noticed in...
I would say that in a disparaging way. I don't really think of them that way, but it's just the way that I think of them, yeah.
Right. In the Nail, I noticed a large part of the first half of the first issue of the Nail is just the JLA sitting talking in their headquarters. And
Yeah.
I was wondering, what did you do to make sure that those...
What was going on, and there was a lot of things that were important to be put in, but I punctuated that with scenes elsewhere which were more interesting, which is obviously just another little trick. If you have a scene which is very elevated, you just punctuate it with something else.
Do you find that being a writer artist that you have more or less time meeting your deadlines?
Well, I think the problem is I don't see myself as being very professional, because what I'll do is I'll think of 10 really good ways to do it, a page, and sometimes I'll try all 10 of them, just to see which one I think is best. There was one, this is just like in thumbnails, just in the thumbnail works, although there was one page of the Nail that I actually did 7 different versions of, and I threw all them away, and it just completely changed the story. So I mean, that's just my indulgence, because I just, love the medium and I want to do something special.
When you're writing a scene, how much do you design the out, layout of the rooms, or the, I guess, most of the characters aren't designed, but how much visual work do you do beforehand before you go into the player?
Well, I think this is one of the things that gets back to the basic tenets of just storytelling which every writer and artist goes through, but I suppose it is something that I have an advantage on. There's a thing called the 180-degree rule, which is used in films, and it's also was used in comics, and nowadays these things just seem to have been thrown away as totally unimportant. But the 180-degree rule, for anyone who doesn't know, is basically if you have a panel and you have character A and character B on the panel like that, you should never ever change them around. You should always have them on the same side of the panel. So even if you have a panel where character A is in the foreground and character B is in the background, when you reverse the shot, character B is still on that side and character A is on that side. That's the 180-degree rule. Now that is obviously very easy to do when you've got 2 people, but when you're dealing with 7 people in a tape headquarters, you do have to start worrying about which way around. Now you'll often see in comics, again, which aren't sort of really thought out between the writer and the artist, because another thing that used to be in early comics was that the top third of every panel would be left clear, so all the dialogue went up there. Now, with modern comics, where the artist tries to fill the entire page, then it starts to become awkward, and you start getting a balloon up here with a tail that looks around here, which is obviously ridiculous. And as a writer artist, you don't do that, because if you work the dialogue out first, you know exactly where it's going, and you just allow the space. The only problem is if you suddenly realise you missed something important out and you have to add an extra bullet. In my case, I've usually not left any extra space at all, and then I have to do some rejigging or redrawing. Any more questions?
This is a question kind of off the subject a little bit. But when you worked on Excalibur at Marvel, did you ever be constrictive about your British influence as far as language and culture, and the Americans wouldn't get lots of little things from them?
Well, I think I sort of had it myself slightly because we get quite a lot of American television programs in England, so in many ways we know more about you than you know about us. So it was easy for me to just say, well, I don't think that would make any sense and leave that out. I tended to go with what I sort of like as a Hollywood version of English people, because if I did real English people, it would seem silly. But having said that, after I left Excalibur and different people took over, it drove me nuts when Captain Britain would call making love LUV, because that was just, it's like a really sort of common East End type of thing. It's not something that someone who's educated would say. It's a slang thing that's really, not very pleasant, that a lot of women would just get really aggravated by. I mean, there's words like hen, which the Scots men call the women hen. Which, if you see that in a comic, you just think that there'd be some sort of like title. But obviously, you just want to steer away from it. Anyone else?
Do you see, being a writer-artist, that you have an advantage over a writer-artist, a separate writer and artist like team?
I think I've got a tremendous advantage, and I think that any writer you speak to would love to draw their own stuff. I think any writer gets frustrated by how much is lost in the interpretation of the pencil. Equally so, I think there are an awful lot of pencils who don't think they're well served by the writers, especially when they're working plot art script style. Because often what will happen, and this is something that I have experienced myself, is that the writer will send you a plot. Well, it's called a plot, I mean it's more like a sales pitch, where you are basically asked to draw the most terrifying, most frightening, most evil, most awful villain that these. I'm trying not to say who this is because it's going to give away who the writer character that's ever been, and you can design it. You don't know what this character's going to be saying, you don't know what they're meant to be doing for future issues, but you've got to draw this most monstrous, evil, nasty character, because that's going to be the splash, that's going to be the dramatic ending. You don't know anything about what's going on. And if the story's not worked out properly, it means that the pencil has to work out. Then the pencil starts to feel shafted. So he does breakdowns instead of finished pencil, so then Nika feels shafted, and it just starts a bit of a vicious circle. But there are an awful lot of writers who will send something which is a not completely thought out plot. They'll think out the dialogue, they'll think out the clever little lines, they'll think of the dramatic images, but they won't think of how the thing fits together sequentially. Anyone else?
So that said, when you're working with a writer-artist, do you actually write a script before you start penciling, or is it more of a half and half thing, or do you basically write a letter or script after you're finished?
No, what I do is I'll visualize the story and then quite mechanically break it down into how many things I can get on the page. But the way that I do this, I don't draw little thumbnails to start off with. I do thumbnails sometimes, but I tend to change my way of working just for a bit of variety. But I'll get like an ordinary line foolscap pad and write just one word along the line for each panel that's going to be, so that it'll be punch, kick, thump in an action scene, just so that I've got an idea of each one of those is going to be one panel. Or if someone's having an argument, I'll have point, walks away, obviously I can't do that in one way, and door slams, things like that, just going across. And each one of those is counted as one panel. And I'll know that I'm going to do between 5 to 8 of those on a page. So I'll have like I say, an ordinary pad, blank pad, just count it up and see how it starts to spread out. But the thing is with experience, you just start to get a feeling for how a scene's going to fit in, how many panels you need. And then if you do set yourself a problem, that's the exciting bit, because that's when you have to start getting creative and doing something different. I think that is the one really sort of like negative pitfall when you are the writer artist, is that you're very frightened about the fact that you could get sloppy very easily. I'm sure that, you know, you've seen a lot of sloppy stuff by writer artists where they give themselves really cool stuff to draw, very little dialogue and very few panels.
Have you ever brought a project to a company and had them say, I like the idea, but we'd rather this person drew it, you write it, or vice versa with the penciling?
Only once, when I first started to try and do stuff at 2008, a long time ago. Most times now, they want me to pencil it. The way that I look at it really is, or the way that I looked at it to start with was, they would let me write just so they could get me to pencil something. So I really pushed myself in. I know that Peter David did this thing when there was a lot of writer artists about it, started calling them warts on the industry. And I really see myself as that, because I was coming along at the tag end, but I was asked by Marvel to do Excalibur. And it was quite nerve-wracking because so many of the writer artists had done really cool stuff. I know that one writer artist had done the first issue where he'd written the thing, got the plot right, but couldn't figure out the dialogue, so the editor had to do the dialogue. The second issue got half plot, and the editor had to have to do the plotting. On the third issue, he just did it up completely. And when those sorts of things happen, it starts to undermine your confidence in yourself because you're going into a totally new area. And if it's something that you really care about, you know that there's a lot of stress. And the thing is when you do something, because again, sort of going slightly to one side here, when I did a clandestine from Marvel UK, people said, why didn't you do it for Image or DC or anyone else? When I went to Marvel UK, Paul Neary was the editor-in-chief, and he was a friend for a long time. And he said to me, what did I want to do? And we can't afford to pay as much as everyone else, but we'd like you to do something for us. And I said, I'll do it for you as long as I get absolute creative freedom. On the clandestine, there wasn't a full stop, comma, anything changed. Whatever I wrote, the plots were looked over just to make sure there wasn't anything pornographic, offensive, or bad taste. And other than that, just went straight through. Now, after that, the clandestine came out, everyone said, why didn't you bring it to us? But I know if I'd have taken it to them, they'd have all said we would want you to change this and change that and change the other. Because up to that point, all I'd done was Excalibur. And that was like, well, really all you did was you carried something on for a few issues. But once you've created something yourself, then people start to take you seriously and treat you as a writer. But as I say, I wouldn't really want to do that because I don't think I'm really capable.
Do you find you get a lot of pressures from like writers because you started out as an artist and now you're kind of moving into their territory and because of the reputation of some writer artists being more.
Yeah.
That's something that ends up being a problem for you.
But I was going to say sort of comically that most of the prejudice I get from writers is because I don't know as many big words as them. Because I often find that most writers love to be on panels and they love to talk about what they're doing, whereas the artist tends to be seen as the labourer. But most writers that I speak to, they really take the attitude, we've got to work together sometime, which I think is maybe just like taking me out of the writing loop, and they'll get me as a pencil for a while. So I don't feel any real hostility, but at the same time I don't really have much to do with anyone else in the comics industry. This is my first time in Chicago. It's only my 7th time at an American convention. I've only been to maybe 30 conventions all told in my career, which is more than 15 years, so I don't really have much to do with anyone.
Wow.
Well, I know in a Wizard interview it's kind of nerve-wracking to both write and draw. Do you find it even more frustrating that you worked so hard in your actual brain and you're under all this pressure to write and draw, and then you leave a book and a new artist and writer come on and they change everything you've already done, like Excalibur, I guess, how that happened?
Well, it's the nature of the industry, and if someone's going to want to carry something on. I was disappointed with the clandestine simply because they agreed beforehand that it wouldn't be carried on without me. And then when they did carry it on, what they did was they condensed about 30 issues worth of plotting into very cool 4 issues that made no sense at all. But, Marvel America let me just say, well, it never happened. I mean, I did actually want to have a scene with Rory waking up in the shower, but it just all got set.
Based on the amount of sexist exceedingly violent, and the case was falling downright stupid material published about an image in some of the companies in kind of a nice number called restricted. And, you know, like when you're talking about clandestine, you're saying that a lot of, like, have a lot of freedom with the book.
Yeah.
But, you know, yet there's a lot of other companies publishing stuff that's, you know, what,
Yeah, I'm not really interested in doing that sort of subject matter. I think that I would like to read comics that have a very wide readership that can be read by any age group. One of the things that I want to do with the Nail again was that I wanted to be able to be read by younger children. I mean, obviously there's like comic book geeks and fanboys who are able to look at it and get all the little references. But there should be other readers who are able to pick it up who've never ever seen the Justice League or any of the DC Universe before, and by the end of it, hopefully they'll have a sense of them, and hopefully they'll have a sense of the way I regard them. So no, I don't really care what Image is doing or what other people are doing. I know that they're going for the kiddie porn and the violence to sell the comics, and if they want to do that, fine. It's not what I see as being important comics.
Excellent.
And so I'll get someone else.
Who approached you about the gender
Well, what actually happened there was my friend and co-worker Mark Farmer, for a while I've been telling to spread out. He's tried a bit of pencil, and anyone who followed the scalpel knows he actually penciled a segment inside the scalpel once. And I've tried to get it to spread out and diversify, because one of the things as an inker is they've already got a computer program that can replace inkers in the same way as the lecturing has been taken over by. I know it's not very good, but it's going to get better. And if you're willing to pay the pencil half of the inches rate to tighten his pencils up and let a computer do the rest of it, it's going to happen inevitably. So Mark's got into writing, and Scott Dungay phoned me up, asked me to do the Gen 13, and I said, well, no, I won't do it, but if you let Mark write it, I'll pencil it. So it's as simple as that.
Was it sort of satisfying, well, that once you left Clandestine, it obviously couldn't carry on without you, and do you have any intention on going back to work on this character?
Well, it didn't die for a long time, and it's only just been cancelled, so it took a very long time to go back. I don't know. I like the clandestine characters, the Excalibur characters, and I will actually be drawing them because I'm going to be going on to X-Men. I'm going to be drawing Kitty Pryde and Nightcrawler again. I'm actually drawing them at the moment. So it's just, the evolution of things. You draw it, you move on. That's the way it is.
Don't you find the Marvel style of just doing page sentimental to the storytelling, because it seems like with Marvel, the first priority is the art, and then the story just comes secondary?
No, I don't think that's true. I think that that's the way it might degenerate if the people who are involved aren't professional and aren't competent. I think if you have a well-considered plot, that's why I said before about some of the plots I've been given. There's plenty of adjective in them, and there's plenty of sales pitch. There's no actual story structure. So when the artist gets it, he has to become the storyteller. And there's a lot of really great artists that aren't very good storytellers. Storyteller is one of those sorts of abilities which is difficult to define. I think it's totally instinctive. I think that you're either a good storyteller, by nature, or you're less good as a storyteller. I think it's something that you can improve on. But it's a little bit like I always use a music analogy. Is that you can hear music, and even if you don't know the piece of music, you can tell a bum note. And that to me is how storytelling is. You often have to do the big piece of story and spot the bum note and fix it up. Sometimes people don't do that. Most artists I've met, most writers, think they are storytellers because they're telling stories, but I think there's a big difference. I think there's some artists that are illustrators, there's some artists that are storytellers. Like Sal Pacino, for instance, who I think is incredibly underrated. He's a brilliant storyteller. I think he's a brilliant artist. He does 2 pages of pencil and inks in a day. Now, if he was to spend one day penciling 1 page, how good is that going to be? He's disparaged because of the way that he works. But if you look at his stuff, it's always very carefully thought out. It's good storytelling. It's easy to follow. But because it's not modern, it sort of falls by the wayside. So you really have to make a distinction in what you're talking about when you're talking about storytelling. The Marvel books, like the DC books, I think all jumped on the Image bandwagon when the big primary panel with the little inset panels and that sort of stuff came into fashion. Marvel followed that. But in the same way, there was the accoutrement book, where once characters started wearing jackets and funny little pouches and belts and everything, that suddenly like, you've even got the Atom, you know, at one point wearing a waistcoat with pouches and stuff on, which just, I couldn't believe. I thought it was the most stupid looking thing I'd ever seen in my life. But I mean, that's what happens, it's jumping onto bandwagons.
You mentioned returning to X-Men. What attracted you to go back to X-Men? Are you having a different approach in your mind? Or?
No, Chris Clement asked me to cancel.
He's writing it?
No, it's Joe Kelly who's going to be writing it. But Chris Kelly's like an editorial advisor or something at the moment, and he just said, would I do it? So I said yes, because I respect Chris.
Is that like a year or 2 years?
It's 6 months at the moment and see how things work out.
Excellent.
Is there any projects you have like in your back pocket that you've always been wanting to do that you haven't pulled that yet?
There's lots of things that I'd like to do. I've got a drawer full of things that I would like to do, but I don't know whether there's going to be a marketplace to do them, you know, with the way things are going. And I just try and enjoy what I've been doing at the time. And the reason I was willing to accept the X-Men is after doing them, I was ready just to do some straight penciling. And it's quite, there is like another downside to when you are the writer, artist on a book. You tend to, you don't have anyone to bounce anything off. You've got to do it all yourself. And that starts to become a strain because you start second and third guessing yourself, thinking, is this right? Could I do it a different way? And instead of just doing the first thing that comes into your head and then someone will write will get the blame if I do it wrong, you do the right as well, so you start second guessing everything.
He thinks he's safe. Doesn't think we know his patterns, his vulnerabilities. We know where his girlfriend lives and how to get at his sidekick. He's faced one clown before, but soon he'll face the Clown Syndicate. There's more than one way to peel a potato.
Dude, what the